The neon sign of Rosie's Diner buzzed faintly against the cool night air, its red glow flickering on the cracked pavement outside. Inside, the place hummed with life, the sizzle of bacon on the griddle, the clatter of plates, the low murmur of truckers swapping stories over coffee. Rosie's wasn't fancy, but it was home to the people who filled its booths every night. And at the heart of it all was Anna Lopez, the diner's youngest waitress, her brown hair tied back in a no-nonsense ponytail, her apron already smudged with grease stains. She moved like clockwork, balancing trays, refilling mugs, offering weary travelers a smile that seemed to chase away their exhaustion. She wasn't just serving food. She was keeping the place alive. The storm walks in bell over the door jingled, and conversation dipped as a man strode inside. He wasn't a trucker or a regular. He wore an expensive gray suit, a gold watch flashing under the fluorescent lights, and a scowl that seemed permanent, sliding into a booth by the window. He didn't wait for Anna to greet him. He snapped his fingers. "You, coffee, black, and make it quick." Anna stiffened, but forced a smile. "Of course, sir." She poured the coffee, setting it gently in front of him. He didn't say thank you. Instead, he took a sip, grimaced dramatically, and spat the words loud enough for half the diner to hear. "This tastes like dishwater. Do you people even know how to brew coffee?" Murmurs rippled through the booths. Anna felt heat creep up her neck, but she bit her tongue. The man's voice grew louder with every order. Pancakes to dry, eggs to runny, fork not polished, napkin to thin. Each complaint wasn't just about the food. It was about her. "You call this service?" He sneered. "No wonder this dump is half empty. People like you should stick to flipping burgers in the back, not trying to serve real customers." Truckers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A young couple glanced over, whispering. Even Rosie, the owner, poked her head out from the kitchen, worry lining her face. But Anna stood frozen, hands trembling as she clutched her notepad. She'd been insulted before. Waitressing came with its share of rude customers. But something about this man, the deliberate cruelty, the smugness, cut deeper than usual. The man leaned back, voice dripping with arrogance. "You know what the problem is? People like you don't understand respect. You should be grateful people like me even eat in this hole." A hush fell over the diner. Even the clatter from the kitchen went silent. All eyes turned to Anna. Her chest rose and fell as she set the notepad down. Slowly, deliberately, she untied her apron, folding it neatly on the counter. Then she stepped forward, her voice calm but firm enough to cut through the quiet. "Sir," she said, meeting his eyes steadily, "you've disrespected me, my co-workers, and every person sitting here. You think money gives you the right to treat people like dirt. But not here, not tonight." The man smirked, opening his mouth to retort. But Anna didn't give him the chance. "Get out." For a moment, silence. Then, one by one, the truckers began clapping. The young couple joined in. Soon the entire diner thundered with applause. The man's face turned crimson as he looked around. Realizing no one was on his side, muttering under his breath, he snatched his coat and stormed out, the bell above the door jingling violently behind him. Anna stood there, heart racing, hands shaking. But her chin was high. That night, in a small-town diner under the glow of a flickering neon sign, a waitress did what no one expected. She kicked a man out, and what none of them knew, not the customers, not Rosie, not even Anna herself, was that this one act of defiance would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Rosie's diner wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The walls were lined with faded photographs of regulars from decades past. Truckers who had driven cross-country. Families who'd celebrated birthdays at booth number 3. Even a grainy black and white photo of Rosie herself when she first opened the place. To the locals. Rosie's wasn't just a diner. It was a safe haven. A place where no one asked about your bank account or your past, only whether you wanted fries with your burger. Anna had worked there for 3 years, ever since she was 19. To customers, she was the quick one, darting between tables with endless energy. But to Rosie, she was more than that. She was family. Outside the diner, Anna's life was far from easy. She lived in a small rented room above a hardware store, barely big enough for a bed and a dresser. The wallpaper peeled, the floor creaked, and winters left the air biting cold. But it was what she could afford. Her days began before sunrise. She'd jog through quiet streets, then take the early shift at the diner. After work, she often hurried to her mother's apartment across town. Her mother's health had been fragile since her father passed away in an accident years ago, leaving Anna as the family's sole provider. Hospital bills stacked on the kitchen counter. Grocery lists were written in pencil, with items constantly erased when money fell short. Anna worked double shifts not because she loved waiting tables, but because she had no choice. For Anna, respect wasn't just about manners. It was survival. She'd grown up watching her mother be treated poorly because she didn't have money or status. Doctors dismissed her concerns. Landlords ignored her calls. Creditors spoke to her like she was less than human. Anna swore she'd never let anyone treat her, or those around her, like that again. So when the suited customer insulted her in Rosie's that night, it wasn't just about burnt pancakes or cold coffee. It was about every injustice she'd ever swallowed. Every moment she'd stayed quiet when her mother was humiliated. That night, she finally spoke. Rosie, the owner, had seen it all. With her graying hair tied back and her apron perpetually stained with flour, she was the backbone of the place. She'd watched Anna grow from a timid teenager into a young woman with fire in her eyes. "You did good, kid," Rosie said softly the morning after the incident. She poured Anna a cup of coffee, the good kind she saved for staff. "But what if I scared customers away?" Anna asked, doubt creeping into her voice. Rosie shook her head firmly. "You didn't scare them. You inspired them. People come here for food, sure, but they also come here to feel safe. And you made them feel safe." Anna blinked back tears. No one had ever put it that way before. Word of the incident spread faster than grease on a griddle. Regulars told the story to their families. A trucker posted about it on a Facebook group, praising the brave young waitress who stood up to a bully. Even the local paper caught wind, running a small column titled, "Respect served fresh at Rosie's Diner. To Anna, It was surreal. She hadn't meant to become a symbol. She'd just defended herself. But now, people looked at her differently, with admiration instead of pity. And with admiration came new challenges she didn't expect. Anna Lopez wasn't trying to be a hero. She was just a waitress fighting for respect in a world that too often denied it. But her one act of defiance had started a ripple that would soon reveal secrets, test loyalties, and lead to a shocking ending no one in Rosie's diner could have imagined. 3 nights later, the bell above Rosie's diner jingled again, and every regular froze. The man in the grey suit had returned. Richard Holloway walked in like he owned the place, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. He scanned the room slowly, his eyes landing on Anna. The diner, once buzzing with chatter, fell into uneasy silence. Truckers exchanged glances. Rosie stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. Anna's heart sank, but she straightened her shoulders. She refused to flinch. Richard slid into the same booth by the window. This time, he didn't snap his fingers. He simply smirked. "Well," he drawled, loud enough for everyone to hear, "if it isn't my favorite waitress, the one who thinks she's a hero." Anna approached calmly, notepad in hand. "What can I get you?" "Respect," Richard shot back, grinning. "But since that's not on the menu, I'll settle for coffee, black. And don't mess it up this time." A ripple of discomfort spread across the room. When Anna brought the coffee, Richard took a long, exaggerated sip. Then he slammed the cup down. "Still terrible," he announced. "Tell me, sweetheart, do you practice making coffee this bad? Or does it just come naturally?" A few customers bristled. One trucker muttered, "Hey, ease up." But Richard ignored him. His eyes never left Anna. "And this place," he continued, waving his hand. "Greasy food, flickering lights, stuff with zero class. Honestly, you people should be grateful someone like me even sets foot in here." Anna's jaw tightened, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "Sir, if you don't like it here, you're free to leave." Richard leaned forward, smirk widening. "Oh, but I love it here. Watching you pretend to be strong while you serve plates of slop. It's entertaining." By now, every customer in the diner was watching. Some looked furious, others uncomfortable. Rosie gripped the counter, torn between stepping in and letting Anna handle it. Anna could feel their eyes on her, waiting, wondering. Would she break? Would she shout? Or would she do what she had done before? Richard wasn't done. He lowered his voice just enough to make it sting, but loud enough for the diner to hear. "You know what your problem is?" He sneered. "You think standing up to me makes you special. But at the end of the day, you're just a waitress, disposable, replaceable, nobody." Anna's breath caught. The words dug deep, stabbing at the very fears she carried late at night in her tiny rented room. But then she saw her mother's face in her mind, her father's memory, the bills she paid, the sacrifices she made. She was many things, but she was not a nobody. Richard thought his words would crush her, that by stripping her of dignity, he could win. But Anna Lopez wasn't about to let one arrogant man define her worth. And what she said next would not only silence the diner again, it would set the stage for the shocking ending no one saw coming. Long before she stood in Rosie's diner, Anna had learned to carry more than trays. She had carried her family. Her father, once a construction worker, had died in a scaffolding accident when she was just 14. One moment he was the man who could fix anything, who smelled of sawdust and grease. And the next, he was gone. Her mother, Sophia, crumbled under the loss. Nights were spent staring blankly at the wall. Mornings filled with tears over unpaid bills. At 15, Anna became the glue that kept them together. Anna was a bright student, known for essays that made teachers pause and smile. She dreamed of college, of studying literature, of writing stories that could touch hearts. But college brochures piled up in a drawer, untouched. There was no money, no scholarships that could cover the medical debt left behind by her father's accident. So instead of packing for university, Anna packed lunches for her younger brother, Matteo, and tied an apron around her waist. She traded classrooms for diner booths, textbooks for order pads. Every plate she carried was another electric bill paid. Every tip tucked into her pocket was one more week of groceries. This was why Richard's words cut so deep. You're just a waitress, disposable, replaceable, nobody. He had said it with the casual cruelty of someone who never had to choose between paying rent or buying food. Someone who never had to give up dreams to keep a family afloat. But Anna knew better. She wasn't a nobody. She was a sister keeping her brother in school. She was a daughter holding her broken mother together. She was the invisible backbone of her family's survival. And if that meant working double shifts, enduring sneers, and facing arrogant men like Richard, so be it. Her father's voice often echoed in her memory. Anna, he'd say, hoisting her onto his shoulders when she was small. Never let anyone tell you what you're worth. People will try. They'll measure you by money, clothes, titles. But your worth is in here. He'd tap her chest gently. In your heart. That memory had carried her through the hardest nights. Through the eviction notices, the arguments with landlords, the moments she thought she'd collapse from exhaustion. It was carrying her now. As Richard tried to strip her of dignity in front of a crowd, Anna looked at him. Her face calm, but her heart burning. For a second, she almost pitied him, a man so desperate to feel powerful that he needed to crush others. But then she thought of her father's wisdom, her mother's tears, her brother's laughter. Richard didn't understand. He couldn't understand. Because true strength wasn't about the watch on your wrist or the car you drove. It was about standing tall even when the world tried to make you kneel. Richard thought his words would define Anna, that by calling her a nobody, he could erase her worth. But Anna's story of sacrifice, resilience, and love had already defined her long before he walked into Rosie's, and soon her response to his cruelty would not only defend her dignity, it would shake the entire diner to its core. It was a Friday evening, the busiest night of the week. Rosie's diner buzzed with life. Truckers lined the counter, families filled booths, and teenagers laughed over milkshakes. The smell of sizzling burgers filled the air. And then the door opened. Richard Holloway walked in. Again. The room stiffened. Even those who hadn't been there during his first outburst had heard the stories. Whispers spread like wildfire. That's him. The rude guy. The one Anna threw out. But Richard didn't look ashamed. He looked smug. He took his usual booth, waving Anna over with 2 fingers like he was summoning a servant. "Water," he said curtly. "With lemon. Not too much ice." Anna obliged silently, setting the glass in front of him. Richard stared at it, then sneered. "Didn't I say not too much ice? Do you even listen? Or are you too busy dreaming about tips you'll never earn?" Snickers rippled from a few strangers, but most people frowned. Rosie clenched her fists behind the counter. Richard leaned back, voice rising so the whole diner could hear. "This is the problem with people like you. No ambition, no class. Just waiting tables until you wither away. And you all clap for her? For what? For being loud? She's a joke. This whole diner is a joke." The diner fell dead silent. Forks froze midair. A child looked up at her father nervously. Anna stood very still. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down her tray. For a moment, everyone thought she might finally cry. But then she lifted her head. Her eyes locked on Richard's, and the tremble stopped. She stepped forward, voice clear, calm, and unshakable. "You think insulting me makes you powerful," she said. "But all it does is show everyone here how small you really are." The words sliced through the air like a blade. The diner erupted in gasps. A few customers clapped before quickly covering their mouths. Rosie's eyes shone with pride. Richard's face went pale, then red. For the first time, he had no clever retort. Anna didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her one sentence echoed louder than all of Richard's insults combined. "You walked in here thinking money makes you better than us. But respect can't be bought. And tonight, you lost it. Not because of me, but because of you." The diner erupted. People clapped, some stood, others cheered. It wasn't just about Anna anymore. It was about every person who had ever been belittled, dismissed, or treated as less. Richard sat frozen, surrounded by the sound of applause that wasn't for him. Anna hadn't shouted. She hadn't begged. She had simply spoken the truth, and in that truth, she silenced a man who thought he could never be silenced. But what Anna didn't know was that Richard's story was far from over, and his next move would shock everyone in ways no one could predict. Richard had never been silenced before. Not in boardrooms, not in negotiations, not even at home. But in Rosie's diner, by a waitress he considered beneath him, he had been stripped bare. That night, as the applause still rang in his ears, Richard stormed out. But he wasn't done. In his chest, humiliation festered into rage. She thinks she won. She has no idea who she's dealing with. The next morning, Rosie unlocked the diner to find Richard already waiting outside in his luxury car. He stepped out, suit pressed, smile cold. "Good morning," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Thought I'd stop by to discuss last night's performance." Rosie frowned. "You're not welcome here." Richard leaned closer. "That's the thing. You don't get to decide that. See, I've got friends, inspectors, bankers, a single phone call. And this charming little diner could be shut down. health violations, financial audits. You'd drown before you knew what hit you. Rosie's stomach turned cold. She knew the diner wasn't perfect. Old pipes, chipped tiles, small things inspectors could exaggerate. Anna, who had just arrived, overheard the threat. Her fists clenched. "Here's the deal," Richard continued, smoothing his tie. "You fire her." He jerked his chin at Anna. "Today, in front of everyone. And maybe, just maybe, I let this place survive." The words hit like a THUNDRCLAP. Rosie froze, torn between her loyalty to Anna and her fear of losing the diner she had built with her own hands. Anna stepped forward. "You don't scare me," Richard smirked. "Maybe not, but I scare her." He pointed at Rosie. By lunchtime, word had spread. Regulars filled the booths, not just for food, but to witness what would happen. The air was electric with tension. Richard sat smugly in his booth, papers in hand, official-looking documents that he waved like weapons. "You see this?" he boomed. "Preliminary inspection reports. All it takes is my signature, and Rosie's will be history." Customers muttered angrily. A trucker shouted, "Leave her alone." A mother hissed, "How can you be so cruel?" But Richard basked in the attention. For him, power was applause, even if it was laced with hatred. Anna walked calmly to his booth. Her hands didn't shake this time. Her voice was steady. "You can threaten me. You can threaten Rosie. But here's what you don't understand, Richard." The diner fell silent, hanging on her words. "You think you're powerful because you can destroy things. But real power is in building, in protecting, in standing up when people like you try to push others down. That's why you'll never win here. Because this diner isn't just walls and food. It's family. And family doesn't bow to bullies." The crowd erupted in cheers. Rosie's eyes welled with tears. For a moment, Richard looked rattled. But then his face hardened. "Fine," he spat. "If it's war you want, it's war you'll get." He slapped the papers onto the table. "Tomorrow, inspectors will be here. And when they're done, this dump will be rubble." He stood, straightened his jacket, and stormed out. The diner buzzed with fear and anger. Customers huddled, whispering. Rosie collapsed into a booth, whispering, "He'll do it. He really will." Anna sat beside her, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Let him come. We'll be ready." Richard thought he had regained control. But he had underestimated the strength of a community, and the fire inside one waitress who refused to be broken. And soon, the storm he unleashed would backfire in ways he never could have imagined. The next day, Rosie's diner didn't smell of pancakes and bacon. It smelled of dread. Rosie wiped the counter 3 times, though it was already clean. Her hands shook as she poured coffee. Even the regulars, truckers, retirees, young couples, sat tensely, their laughter replaced with hushed murmurs. Anna, however, moved with calm determination. She braided her hair tight, as though preparing for battle. "He's bluffing," one customer whispered hopefully. But then, at exactly noon, 2 men in crisp suits walked in. Not customers, inspectors. The diner went cold. One inspector flipped open a clipboard. The other adjusted his glasses. "We've had reports of possible violations. Routine check. Everyone knew it wasn't routine. This was Richard's doing. The inspectors began scrutinizing everything, peeling paint, a cracked tile near the counter, the slightly rusted hinge on the restroom door. They measured, photographed, and scribbled notes with clinical detachment. Rosie wrung her hands. "Please, the food is clean, the kitchen's safe, we'll see." One inspector cut her off coldly. Richard sat outside in his luxury car, watching through the window with a smug smile, like a predator circling prey. But something happened Richard hadn't expected. One by one, customers began speaking up. A trucker stood. "I've eaten here every week for 15 years. Best food on the road. Never been sick once." A mother added, "This place fed my kids when I couldn't afford much. Rosie even gave us meals for free." Even the local mailman chimed in. "You shut this place down. You're not just hurting Rosie. You're hurting the whole town." The inspectors shifted uncomfortably, jotting notes but glancing at each other. Anna's bold move. Anna stepped forward. "Calm, steady, unafraid. Gentlemen, I know why you're here. A man with money and pride asked you to be. But let me ask you, is your job about serving his ego or serving the truth?" The entire diner went silent. You see cracks in the tiles, faded paint on the walls. But what you don't see is the respect, the kindness, the family this diner gives. This place isn't perfect, but it's honest. And that's more than I can say for the man pulling your strings. Gasps filled the room. Customers clapped softly. From outside, Richard's smile faltered. One inspector closed his folder slowly. "Miss, what did you say his name was?" Anna didn't hesitate. "Richard Holloway." The inspector's eyes narrowed. He exchanged a look with his partner. "Interesting. Because we've been investigating Mr. Holloway's company for months. Fraud, embezzlement, shady investments. And now he's trying to bully small businesses." Whispers erupted through the diner. Rosie's jaw dropped. Anna folded her arms, locking eyes with Richard through the window. For the first time, he looked powerless. The inspectors stood tall. Rosie's diner has minor maintenance issues, but nothing warranting closure. In fact, one smiled faintly. "We'll be coming back." As customers, the diner erupted in applause, louder than ever before. Rosie hugged Anna so tightly she almost couldn't breathe. Outside, Richard slammed his steering wheel in rage before peeling away, tires screeching. Richard thought he could destroy Rosie's with a phone call. Instead, he exposed his own corruption. And as he fled in shame, Anna and Rosie stood taller than ever, unaware that the biggest twist of all was still yet to come. After speeding away from Rosie's, Richard's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from his office, his boss, even his lawyer. He finally picked up, voice tense. "Richard." His lawyer hissed. "The inspectors you tried to sick on that diner. They're federal investigators. They've been building a case against your company for months. And now your name is tied directly to intimidation, corruption, and fraud. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Richard's blood ran cold. For the first time, it wasn't just humiliation. It was fear. Back at Rosie's, life slowly returned to normal. Customers laughed, plates clinked, and the smell of pie filled the air. But Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was unfolding. That evening, a man in a dark coat approached the counter. He wasn't a regular. He carried himself with quiet authority. "You're Anna Lopez?" he asked. Anna tensed. "Yes, why?" He handed her a card. "Special Agent Collins, Financial Crimes Division." Rosie gasped. Agent Collins leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We've been watching Richard Holloway for months. Embezzlement, insider trading, you name it. But today, you gave us exactly what we needed. His threat to you? The witnesses here? That's leverage in court. And your courage may have just saved us months of work." Anna blinked in shock. I was just doing my job." The agent smiled. "Sometimes doing your job is exactly what changes everything." He slid another card across the counter. "We could use someone like you. Someone who sees through arrogance. Who isn't afraid to speak the truth. Ever thought about working in investigation?" The diner gasped. Rosie clutched Anna's arm proudly. Meanwhile, Richard sat in his penthouse, staring at headlines on his laptop. Corporate exec under federal scrutiny after harassing small-town diner. Humiliation at Rosie's diner. Arrogant suit faces. Public backlash. Phone calls went unanswered. His wife packed her bags silently in the background. His son wouldn't look at him. For the first time, Richard realized the empire he built on fear and manipulation was crumbling, and the waitress he had called a nobody was at the center of it. That night, as Rosie locked up, Agent Collins returned with a file. He handed it to Anna. "I think you'll want to see this." Inside were documents tracing Richard's fraudulent dealings, shell companies, bank transfers, and then one name froze Anna in place. Sophia Lopez. Rosie gasped. "Anna, what is it?" Anna's hands shook. "My mother's pension. The money she lost after Dad died. It was his company. Richard's schemes stole it." The room spun. The man who had humiliated her wasn't just a random bully. He had directly destroyed her family's life years ago. 3 days later, Rosie's diner was packed to the brim. News cameras lined the street. Reporters wanted to see the small-town diner where a waitress had stood up to a corporate tyrant. And then, through the flashing bulbs, Richard Holloway appeared. His once pristine suit looked rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. Gone was the arrogance. In its place, desperation. He walked inside, ignoring the whispers, and stopped at Anna's table. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "I need to talk." The diner went silent. Anna stood, her apron still tied around her waist. "Talk? About what? About how you mocked me, threatened Rosie, tried to shut us down? Or maybe about how your company stole my mother's pension after my father died?" Gasps rippled through the diner. Even Richard looked stunned. I didn't know," he stammered. "That wasn't me. It was the board." "No," Anna cut him off sharply. "It was you. Your signature is on those transfers. You destroyed my family long before you walked into this diner." The weight of her words pressed down on the room like thunder. Richard's knees buckled, and for a moment, he looked like a broken man. His voice was barely a whisper. "I've lost everything. My job, my family, my reputation. And now, you..." Anna stared at him coldly. You never had me, and you never deserved their respect either. She turned to Agent Collins, who stood quietly in the corner. Take him. He's yours. The agent nodded. Richard didn't resist as two men stepped forward, placing cuffs around his wrists. For the first time in his life, Richard Holloway left a room not as the most powerful man in it, but as the weakest. The diner erupted in cheers. Rosie hugged Anna tightly, whispering, "You did it, kid. You saved us." But Anna shook her head. "No, Rosie, we saved each other. This diner stood by me, and I stood by it. That's what family does." Agent Collins approached with a smile. "We still meant what we said. When you're ready, we'd like you to consider training with us. You've got instincts we can't teach." Anna smiled faintly. "Maybe one day, but right now, my family needs me here." As the crowd began to disperse, a little boy tugged at Anna's apron. It was Richard's son. His mother stood nearby, watching silently. The boy looked up with wide eyes. "Miss, thank you for showing my dad what respect really means." Anna knelt, her voice gentle. "You don't have to be like him. Be better. Be kind. That's real strength." The boy nodded slowly, and in that moment, the entire diner realized the truth. Richard's downfall wasn't just punishment. It was a chance for the next generation to rise different. The narrator's voice closed the tale. Respect isn't bought with money or demanded with power. It's earned through kindness, humility, and truth. One waitress's courage exposed a giant's lies, and in doing so, reminded us all of a simple truth. Sometimes the strongest voice in the room is the one they least expect. The screen faded to black. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that prove courage can come from anywhere. Fate had played a cruel trick. The man Anna thought was just another arrogant stranger was tied to the deepest wound of her past. And now, the choice lay before her. Would she let the law handle him? Or would she take matters into her own hands?